For a couple of weeks this summer, it seemed like the entire landscape of college sports was going to make a major shift. In the end, only 3 teams ended up switching conferences, and one of those is the University of Utah. That has meant Dr. Chris Hill has had a very, very busy summer as the athletic director of the University of Utah, and he joins us now. Chris, thanks so much for coming in.
Well, thanks for having me.
So let's talk a little bit about how this all came about, that the University of Utah is suddenly going to be joining one of the long-standing, most traditional powerhouse conferences, the Pac-10.
Well, a lot of things unfolded. You know, as we have planned for our future and looked what we do, we want to be one of the best programs in the West. Fortunately, we have a research one institution and big medical center, very much like a lot of the Pac-10 schools. So, you know, we've been competitive. We have good facilities, but the Pac-10, with their new commissioner and the new vision they wanted to have, they announced that they're going to take a serious look at expansion. And, you know, we let them know who we are, and they know who we are. There's no tricks in the world. And as it all unfolded, Colorado got invited, then we got invited. It's a nice pair, and, you know, our faculty and students and community are excited. It's a wonderful, prestigious league to be a part of. Not that we didn't enjoy where we are for the rest of this year. We got to play well, but it's going to be fun in the future.
Now, how does this change what you do? Both in terms of, you know, putting the product out on the field and also dealing with the challenges of now having to travel a little bit further than you did in the past, and you know, adding you know, all this extra attention.
Well, I think that's part of it, is handling the different pressures that are out there, the visibility. I mean, the spotlight's a little bit more, the challenge become more magnified. We need to generate a lot of our own money more than we did before. So the whole bar is up there, but you know, it's a chance to play at the highest level and compete with some of the most prestigious schools in the country. So we'll just get after it and spend a little more time working hard, but it'll be an interesting situation.
Now, a lot of the talk, of course, was centered around, you know, what was going to happen with college football. Obviously, it's the big revenue driver for every college sport, basketball as well, but to a slightly lesser extent. How is this going to affect all the other teams? Because you know, you still have a baseball team, a softball team, and you have to compete against these established programs in a power conference. Suddenly, small University of Utah is, you know, moving up from, you know, it's like in English soccer. You've been promoted from Division I to the Premier League.
Well, unfortunately, several of our sports have done very well on the national level. You know, our both men's and women's basketball program have traditionally been in the NCAA tournament, have done well. And we anticipate that will happen. You know, competing for the league championship in the Pac-10, as I've said many times, is like competing for the national championship. Many of those teams have won national championships. But in certain sports that we've done very well traditionally, we anticipate doing well again, which means getting in the NCAA tournament, making some noise, doing some good things. Of course, there's some sports that are going to be really challenged. I mean, for example, women's soccer has done really well for us. They're going into a league where 8 of the 10 teams in that league went to the NCAA tournament. I mean, 8 of the 10. You know, that's going to be a challenge, but at the same time, you finish in that middle of that league, you're going to get in the NCAA tournament and maybe cause some damage. So, you know, some people are a little nervous. Their eyes are wide open. But again, it's a chance to recruit at the very highest level, get after the very best athletes in the country, and, you know, see what happens.
Does there have to be some managing of expectations for the next couple of years, you know, knowing that it takes a while to get athletes through the pipeline to start recruiting, you know, for softball or baseball, and try to draw someone who, you know, may have been thinking about going to a USC or
Absolutely.
a UCLA and getting them to University of Utah?
You're right on the mark. Every sport's different. You know, so we sat down with each individual sport, talked to them about what do they need to get where they are. You know, that's not a panacea. We're not going to be able to dump a bunch of money in the program immediately. But so each sport's a little bit different. We do have to manage expectations. Some will have higher expectations than others, but each sport we want individually to talk about what's realistic in the next 3 to 4 to 5 years. We do that anyway every year when we're in the Mountain West Conference. It's just, you got to look at it a little different now.
Now, you mentioned, you know, that there's a number of sports that you have to look at. Are there current sports on the University of Utah landscape that are not varsity sports yet, that need to be now that you're joining the Pac-10 Conference?
You know, I've had that question a lot, and there's a lot of wonderful club sports on the campus, but at the present time, it doesn't look like we're going to be in the adding mode, because there's a lot of stress on all of our budgets, and as we move to Pac-10, there's things we got to do to make sure the sports we do have right now are funded appropriately and can compete at what our expectations are. So I don't see it happening right away. It may down the road, but not right now.
All right. Well, you've mentioned funding a couple of times.
Sure.
So let's talk a little bit about the money factor in this.
Sure.
Obviously, the Big Ten has their own television network. The SEC came up with their own deal with ESPN. What is in the pipeline for the Pac-10? Are you allowed to tell us what's in the pipeline, and how is that going to affect the funding that you're going to have down the road?
Yeah, there's two things. There's one, the funding we need to generate on our own to close that gap between our budget and others. The fortunate thing is that we don't have a bonding situation. We're in debt, and some of the schools do, you know, to build their facilities. We may get to that point as we get more revenue from the league. So we got to do our own thing through fundraising, ticketing, whatever, to generate more money. The second thing is the league's a postseason football tournament, which is probably going to a game's going to happen, but the TV situation is the deal, and we're ahead of a lot of other leagues in terms of when we're up to market. And it could be a combination of a lot of things. Like the Big Ten has ABC, CBS, ABC, ESPN, and they have some other, and then they have the Big Ten Network, which is becoming very successful. And that model could work for us too, because we have several different markets, and it could dominate these two time zones.
Okay, you know, you mentioned facilities. Rice-Eccles Stadium, perfectly fine, lovely, lovely stadium for the Mountain West. You are now one of the smallest stadiums. I think you actually are the smallest stadium in the Pac-10.
Well, it's interesting. There's some off the chart, like the Rose Bowl, but not on campus. On campus, Washington State is in the 30s. We're 45. Oregon State's 45 and change. There are a couple like 51, 52. So it's not a huge gap. And truth be known, some are remodeling, and they're reducing some of their seats. So I told our friends, take a breath. Let's not take a look at saying we got to expand tomorrow. We have a lot of interest in our program, and we'll explore it and see what's going to happen. But there's no mandate from the Pac-10, and sometimes people think that, you know, people have the Michigan kind of stadiums with 100,000 people. That's not the case. If it warrants expanding, we'll do it. If we think the demand's there, we'll look at. But right now, it's very much on just explore and take a look at. See, there's other facilities we need to do. They're ahead of that. We have a sports medicine area that's woefully inadequate, and some football operations. So, you know, it's a little different than people might think.
Okay. All of this is still to come.
Yeah.
It's not gonna happen for a while. So, what is the situation like with the Mountain West Conference for this next year? You know, is there a lot of grumbling? Is there a lot of, you know, lame duck situations where, you know, if you have suggestions, nobody's going to listen to you anymore?
Well, they may not listen to me. Maybe didn't listen to me before, but you know, the Mountain West has been very gracious. The other ADs, the Commissioner Craig Thompson, have been very gracious about our move. They all know that if, you know, no disparaging for the Mountain West, but if they had that same opportunity, they would do the same thing we've done. You know, so it's not any kind of animosity towards us. It may be a little tougher to compete. You know, some of our coaches are going to be a little paranoid and think, well, why did we get that official today? They don't care about us or whatever. But the reality is they're going to be very professional about we are. And our coaches, you know, that's what you do with them. That's who they are. They just stay focused and try to win the next game. It's a bunch of cliches, but they've got to concentrate on the Mountain West. And, you know, football coaches, he didn't want to talk anymore about the Pac-10, and I think that's right for him. For me, I've got to do it. I mean, I can't avoid it. That's on everybody's mind. But I understand where the focus is for our players and athletes. We don't want to take somebody's senior opportunity and be spending 1 foot in the next year while we're trying to give them a great experience.
All right. Well, we are almost out of time, but I couldn't let you go if I didn't have you give us a little preview. How's the football team looking this season?
I think we got a lot of talent. You know, we've lost a lot of good players on the offensive side of the ball. Not quite as many as the defensive side. Got a quarterback back that's really came on well at the end of the year. And in many ways, it's a quarterback game. You got the guy that touches the ball every time, and he's got some skills. I don't want to put the whole burden, but that really puts you on a positive side. but we've got a great offensive line will help our offense, and our defense is fast. And some guys have got to learn, but they got some skill.
All right, well, we look forward to seeing the product on the field coming up in just a few weeks. Football season not very far away. Dr. Chris Hill, Athletic Director, University of Utah. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you for having me. Great.